You at 20 years old is not an end of a life, it's a beginning of a life.
And an end.
No.
It's a little bit of both.
No.
It feels like that.
No. Ending childhood is never an end.
It's like an identity has ended in some ways. Where I'm like, how...
Yeah, horrible one.
Like, how do I... how do I want to represent myself in my new being of existing?
Okay, so
Who am I?
So
kind of a thing.
what is adolescence?
I guess development.
No, adolescence is no consequences.
Okay, yeah.
You have no consequences when you're young.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there is consequences, obviously.
Yeah.
We know that there's consequences. But there's the reality that when you're young, your parents are covering you, your school's covering you, you can make a mistake, and what was going to happen? Adults are going to fix it for you.
Yeah.
So when you're young, you can be young and carefree.
Yes.
There's no consequences.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a good place to be.
It's, well, yeah, I guess.
No, it's not.
It's memory making.
Memory making is not that is not a reason to be young.
Mm-hmm.
That is not, and this is where we go back to like the Taylor
Well,
Swift
then
idea.
being young is about learning.
Is it?
Well, yes, because you have to, like, at some point you do need to navigate. Like, you get your consequences, but, like, you wouldn't want your life to be completely over because you screwed something up when you were a teenager.
Right, that's why we allow them to be stupid.
Yeah.
That's why we allow young people to do dumb things.
Mm-hmm.
That's why adults cover them.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not an identity.
Yes.
You've never, when you were young, you never had an identity.
Uh-huh.
Because everything that was, you didn't produce. You chose nothing in your life.
Mm.
Because when you're young, this is why it's a death of nothing. Death of adolescence is the death of innocence. It's the death of you not providing anything and having your identity. When you are young, your parents are your identity. Your home that your parents bought is your identity.
Mm-hmm.
The school you go to is because your parents lived in that spot, or wherever circumstances that were not your choice goes into that spot. If they chose you to go, they forced you into that school.
Mm-hmm.
They forced you into every single area. Your friends are friends because they were in your sphere at that moment.
It wasn't chosen.
It wasn't chosen. You didn't choose it. Those are the people around you. Yes, you had a choice of within this group, I'm going to be friends.
Mm-hmm.
It's there. I mean, it's one of the most interesting things.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of the most difficult things also for the people that peak in as adolescents.
Yeah.
You see that in the most popular females. You see that in the most popular male athletes. You see it where they peak there and they want to live there. Because there's an interesting thing about the unchosen identity. There's a reason that everyone loves to look at the popular celebrities when they were in high school, and we laugh at how they don't look like them.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, and a lot of them will come out and say, I kind of struggled in high school.
Yeah.
Why? Because most likely they weren't the top of the totem pole. They weren't peaking there.
They didn't decide who they wanted to become in this life.
They made no choices. It was all chosen for them.
Mm.
But when you go from adolescence, that innocence that I have no consequences,
Mm-hmm.
to being an adult,
Mm-hmm.
you now have consequences. You have a million choices, and they all have consequences.
Yes.
You literally are at that moment which your mama told you you can do anything you want to.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the problem that the mama didn't tell you with you can do anything is every one of those choices is a choice that will limit something else.
Mm-hmm.
You can't choose them all.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's usually how we want as young. Because when you're adolescent, you can be like, oh, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do this,
Yep.
and I'm going to do this. The problem is when you get to become an adult, you can't do them all.
Yeah. No, you have to prioritize.
You have to sacrifice everything else.
Absolutely.
So what does it mean to really sacrifice everything else?
You have to let go of some interests, some desires, some things that you would prefer to be doing for the sake of whatever goal, ambition, or thing you're prioritizing. It's you're deciding, okay, this has more value to me than perhaps all these other things that